that's in that spot and help kind of guide and direct them in how they go through their analytics journey. One of the things I do for a number of my clients, I serve as a general contractor. I'll build the strategy. They'll say, Sean, can you execute it? They'll say, oh, I need to do Snowflake, or I need to do Matillion, or I need to do, whatever, Fabric or Synapse, whatever. I have a whole network of subcontractors that I work with where I go find the right resources for them, pull the teams together, and help oversee the execution of those data strategies. And then the last thing here is that because of the years that I've been out working with all of these companies, and again, this is something I implore younger consultants especially to do, is be a sponge about the business, because what we're missing in the marketplace right now are enough people that know business and can talk the data geekness and figure out how to meld the two together. We get lots of young engineers that come out and they can learn, they know Python, but they don't know a darn thing about what to do with it to actually solve a business problem. You need someone who has a business mind that understands the business problems to know how to apply them to do the right things with the technology. So it's a key part of what I do. We started Analytics to Win as a method. I created that and launched it back around 2020. We've had lots of conversations. Paul knows the history. It was supposed to be a book. The book got scuttled when a number of my business partners asked me if I would just launch it as a method because they wanted to implement it for clients. And if I launched it as a book, they're like, then everybody would know the secrets, and they all wanted to know it. So I have now developed relationships with firms around the world, and they're now using the Analytics to Win methods to build data strategies for companies globally, which has been fabulous. It's been a lot of fun. And then the last thing, you guys, those of you who are here, okay, who made the effort to drive through the light rain to be here tonight, you get your Drinks and Data podcast coaster. Those of you online, you'll hear a little bit more about it, but please go to drinksanddata.com. That's drinksnddata.com. And you'll have links to some of the podcast episodes that are out there, or you can go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google. It's pretty much all over the place. And I would encourage you to give that a listen if you are looking for a podcast that both entertains and informs through expertly crafted conversations. It's not just me babbling. I'm a co-host. We get to interact and have a lot of fun. So that is the latest venture that we're on. So enough about that. The topic for tonight is data visualization, trends, and best practices. And when Paul hounded me, and Paul, I want to thank you for your persistence and patience, because no problem. I feel like I was a bit elusive. I just had a lot going on, and to try and find the timing, it was a little challenging. Yes.
On this side.
Sure.
That'll work better for the online folks.
Can
Thank
you
you.
all see me now?
You're a popular guy.
Okay.
Good.
Does the hair still look spiky online?
Thank you.
Can you use
Whatever hair.
Can they make it look a little less gray? Okay. All right. So when you asked me to talk about data visualization best practices for the third time, and I was very resistant because I'm like, can't we please talk about data strategy? Because I think that's more interesting. It's like, no, the group wants to talk about data visualizations. And I said, well, listen, isn't data visualization dead? I mean, ThoughtSpot wants us to tell us that dashboards are dead. Why are we even here? Why does it matter?
Lies.
Sit on a throne of lies. So the proclamation is that here it is. Chat-based AI-driven analytics are supposed to replace dashboards and visualizations, right? Raise your hand. This works. Raise your hand. Okay. Okay. I call BS on this. How many of you are using Power BI? Raising. Okay. How many of you are using Tableau? Okay. Anyone using Qlik?
Yeah,
No?
we're moving from Tableau to Qlik.
Good. It's the best thing you're going to do. Okay. Now, I have clients running all of them. I've implemented all of them. I use all of them. And I will tell you, doing that for 20 years with different visualization platforms, and you know where I'm going with this. You prick my finger, it runs lime green. Okay. Qlik is hands down, kicks Tableau and Power BI's ass. Just telling you, okay? I know Power BI is dominating the world. I have a client right now going through a Power BI deployment. where they're moving away from click and everyone is screaming because they're just like, this just doesn't work as well. Anyway, we'll talk about that more. So if dashboards aren't dead, we need to ask why. Okay, so we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about why dashboards have not yet been replaced, specifically why dashboards that serve as a visualization have not been replaced. But to go through that, okay, we're going to talk about our first data visualization trend number one, which is that AI and chatbots still suck. Okay, they did when they came out, they still do. Is anyone here using ThoughtSpot? Okay. And I know that there are some folks related to this group. Some implement ThoughtSpot, some might use ThoughtSpot. There are a few companies that have had some success with ThoughtSpot, and I know Cindy. How many of you see Cindy Housen's LinkedIn posts like 4 a day? Anyone? Okay, she's their like chief data evangelist, and she's a great lady. I know Cindy. She's been in Madison. We've done some events together, but we've kind of had enough. Okay. The reality is that AI to help you do your analytics is just not there yet. Now, the great theologian Homer Simpson has said that trusting every aspect of our lives to a giant computer was the smartest thing we ever did, right? Okay. And I'm not gonna, I could spend hours talking to you about AI and the technologies and all that fun stuff. We're not going to do a lot with AI tonight. All I want you to understand is that there's a good side and a bad side to all this. And the question is, is AI going to be WALL-E for us, for those of you who've had kids, or is it going to be the Terminator? We have things to keep our eyes on. Even the CEO of Google is concerned about AI, okay? Now, Nick, I was telling you this in the lobby, right? And I don't know if it's because I was like having a couple of bad days when I was working on these slides, but my slide deck is kind of dripping with some cynicism and sarcasm. Okay, how many of you have seen Captain America? Okay, do you guys remember at the beginning, like when he goes from like the scrawny little kid and they like inject this, like, is it green or blue stuff in his veins? They inject some stuff in his vein. Okay, I feel like when I was his age, somebody did that with me, and it was just this huge dose of sarcasm. It just is the way I am. It gets me into some trouble, but it also helps me be a little bit more lighthearted about some of the things, because we're all in the data world, and sometimes that can be very helpful for us. So you're going to hear a little bit of that as we go through it. Some of it you might even think is controversial. Feel free to raise your hand and let's have a discussion around it as we go through it, because that's part of what I want. I want to get you guys thinking about some of this stuff, okay? Now, that being said, what was the first tag, metadata tag I told you about me at the very first slide when we kicked this off? Does anyone remember?
Engineer.
Engineer, okay. I am brutally practical. I am like when clients hire me to help them, I'm all about making sure they get real value. Okay, I want to implement stuff that works, not stuff that's just cool. Okay, and I've seen a lot of software vendors, technology vendors pitch stuff that's cool that the companies that I work with, they just can't get any value out of it. Okay, so you're going to hear some of that cynicism through this because I want you to understand some things that actually work. Okay, and AI and chatbots, they're not where I want them to be yet. Okay, and there's a couple of key reasons. We're going to talk about two key reasons that's like stymieing the effectiveness of AI and chatbots when it comes to analyzing your data, hence producing visualizations. The first is that we have poor or missing data definitions in our data environments. Okay, so give you an example. If I ask a chatbot, okay, how many of you sell a product? Does anyone here sell? Okay, what kind of products do you sell?
We manufacture cheese.
Cheese, grande cheese. Gosh, I love you. I love cheese. Just every single meal I have has cheese, just so you know. Okay. And Travis, I know you sell Snowflake, and that doesn't count. It's really service, sort of. Okay, if I got charged,
Typical product.
if I got charged by the amount of effort I put into eating cheese, okay, it's like you could probably charge me that way, I suppose. Okay, so if I asked you, like, what were your sharp cheddar cheese sales in Q1?
0.
What?
We make Italian cheese.
What were your Romano cheese sales in Q1?
Off the top of my head, I don't know, but
And
it's
let's
readily available.
say I asked the chatbot, okay, does anyone ever not like your cheese?
Somebody has to not like it.
Does anyone ever return your cheese?
Only was probably, we don't retail. So
Okay.
we're wholesale. So if there are problems, our cheese is guaranteed. If it does not perform well at your restaurant, we'll replace it.
Great. Do you ever give a credit back to the customer?
Give them cheese.
Okay.
Like,
Do you ever get an order for cheese that takes a while for the cheese to finish its process before you ship it out the door?
No.
No, you only, because you're a wholesaler.
Yeah, we're selling.
You
to
won't
distributors.
sell anything that you actually don't have in stock.
Right.
Okay, well, you're a bad example. All right.
We're weird.
I have lots of companies that build stuff and they'll take an order and then they'll build it and then they'll ship it. So if I ask a chatbot what your sales are, what is the definition of sales? Is it booked sales? A lot of my customers call it demand, or is it chip sales? They'll call that revenue because they actually can reflect it. They don't know the difference. Does the chatbot know the difference? Have you trained your AI environments to know the definition of what a sale even is? Okay. Then take it a step further. Does that sale include returns for that month, for that period, or does it not include returns? I've sat in a room with a CEO, a CFO, a chief marketing officer, and a CIO, and had to adjudicate a 90-minute discussion around whether or not the word demand includes returns or does not include returns. If those 4 people at that company didn't know, how in the world is my AI engine going to know if sales actually includes returns or doesn't include returns? Okay. Very few companies put the time, thought, and effort into that to define it so that you can actually use AI or a chatbot to give you a response back. Because if I go walk up to the ThoughtSpot device and Click has one and Tableau has one and Power BI, I can talk to Power BI now too. And I say, what were my sales in Q1 of 2023? How does it know what to give you a right answer? So again, revenue. I'm going through this with a client right now. We're literally in the middle of launching a Power BI dashboard that has part of the dashboard is gross revenue and part of the dashboard is net revenue. And you know what they never said up until this point? They never told their employees that there's a difference between the two. Okay. They've had product managers making decisions off of net revenue, not gross revenue. Now, there's some reasons why net can be important to them, but it's far more important to know what your gross revenue is, not to know that I gave a credit back to a customer on some failed project that had nothing to do with the product. Did that actually reduce the effectiveness of my job selling that product? Nuh-uh. There's something else that went along with that. So knowing the difference between the two is huge in building the right visualizations and helping your clients get value out of it. And it's one of these things that just stymies AI and chatbots. The last example that I will bring up is inventory. How many of you have inventory? Okay. The problem I'm seeing with companies with inventory is that some of them value the inventory based on the last purchase price that they spent when they bought the inventory. And then other companies value the inventory based on the standard cost of the inventory, and they keep track of it and they average it over time. Okay. Now there's accounting minutia that takes place because like the companies that revalue inventory based on last purchase order, now they've got to do allocations for how much inventory do I have on stock, and then they revalue it. And I've had companies take $500,000 of net profit that disappears because they revalued their inventory over the course of the last month, especially as stuff gets more expensive, right? I bought it for $5. Now my last PO says it's $8. It's like I revalue all of my inventory at $8 and I have a big accounting adjustment and now they wonder what's going on. Okay. How is a chatbot going to know that, right? How does AI know that? You can train it, you can build a better data model, but a lot of companies just don't do it. And so they run into problems when they try and use these technologies and you haven't properly defined your data. Okay, so this is emerging as one of the most popular exercises when I'm building data strategies for companies, is we have to do some work on data definitions because it's almost always poor. The second reason why I'm seeing companies struggle with AI and chatbots from a data visualization perspective is because the insights that they produce they're just not really very good. Okay. So for example, come on. Waiting for it. Okay. So this is a real example. I know it's really hard to see. You guys know the technology, right? You can see a little box on the right. Somebody in this room better yell it out because you use it here. It's Power BI. Okay. We got, okay. There's a whole table full of data here, and there's actually some insights that I can glean from this table by just looking at it if it were legible. When I go and ask Power BI, it says, we didn't find any insights. Learn more about Power BI insights. Like sometimes it just doesn't work. When it doesn't work, people won't use it. Okay. And I find this a lot. Now, I don't want Power BI to be left alone. I've already told you, I still think Qlik is the best platform for visualizations. However, I went and did this 2 nights ago. I took a client set of data in Qlik and I ran their insight advisor using AI technology to generate insights from the data. I actually specify a couple of very basic, like basic but important measures and dimensions, which are products and sales. And I get this, candidly, this meaningless bar chart. Like there is no insight here at all. Right? It doesn't tell me over what time frame. I get no trends. I don't get to see any exceptions like what's hot, what's not. This is a useless bar chart. And when I have used the chatbots and the AI tools and I ask it to give me some insights, I usually get insights that are essentially what I call sophomoric. Okay. And just to define that, lacking in maturity or judgment leading to overconfidence. Because what's the worst database decision you can make? It's a data-based decision when the data makes you feel like you're right, but you're actually wrong. Okay. And to me, and again, the cynical, sarcastic Sean's coming through here, AI and chatbots, they need a really good data model. They need really good data engineering and data management. And then you can start to get some value from them. So I like to say, not to be total Debbie Downer on all this, but how is AI actually helping? Okay, because it is doing a few things. And one of them is that I like to say AI has become the rising tide that raises all ships. Okay. I can take a 5th grader and I can have them build a proper chart now. Okay. AI will tell them that this data, that's a time series data, that should be on a trend. Okay. AI has been good at that, but candidly, like Tableau's been doing that for like 10 years. Okay. It's not anything that particularly new. But AI can influence, or I'm sorry, it can suggest the right type of chart based on the data. Okay. But it's usually very simple stuff, like this is a bar chart or this is a trend chart. It will help influence the charts that you do. And some of this, I mean, the systems will build all the charts. I mean, you can go to Qlik, you can go to Power BI and say, build me a dashboard, and it will build it all for you. Okay. And there's only one thing we know for 100% certain about the dashboard it builds. Can anyone guess what that is? It's wrong. Something's going to be wrong. Okay. So you have to go in and tweak it. But I like to say that, and I'll get to it, it gives you some creative inspiration. Okay. And that I think is a good thing. I do think that the natural language processing that AI has built into it. Now, again, we're not talking ChatGPT. It's a precursor. We're talking NLP. So just the ability to, there are tools that can read the chart and it will spit out a verbiage of text where it interprets it for you. Okay. Those I've seen with some success when you're giving, like if you're taking a dashboard, interpreting it, and someone has to like write it out and put it in a report to the board. natural language, it's easy for me to say, right? NLP can help in that process. Again, I think AI can give you some creative inspiration for charts and analysis. That's a good thing. Can kind of get me started and get the juices flowing as to what charts and graphs I should put in my dashboard. And then the last piece is that, and I have a client actually in Europe who's doing this. They're using, I bristle at this, but they're using ChatGPT to help them craft their data definitions for key data terms. This is a huge financial services company, but their team is stymied. They can't sit in a room together and figure this out. So they're literally going to start using ChatGPT. They've already started using it to create data definitions. I don't know how it's going to go yet, but we'll see. Did Molly had to go away and then she came back? Okay. So speaking of ChatGPT and this being a data visualization best practices, I'll say Meetup. And ChatGPT sucks for people who want like it presentations, because like now you have to take your content, you have to run it through ChatGPT because you always have to kind of do a gut check to see, well, what does it say about the topic you're speaking on? So I'm like, well, I better do this. And so I asked ChatGPT, I said, what are the best practices for data visualization? Okay. And I got 7 of them. Okay. And I'll just read the headings, right? So know your audience, keep it simple, choose the right type of visualization, use color effectively, label it clearly, provide context, and test your visualizations. You know what? Good job, ChatGPT. Those are still good. And like I say, they still apply, but they haven't changed much since the first time I talked to you guys on data visualizations, which I think was 4 years ago. And I would go back and say they haven't changed much in the last 10 years. So stick to it, keep doing this stuff. This is good stuff, okay? But you know this, or it's easy to go find this. We don't need to spend a lot of time on the stuff that you all know. You got me over here, it's too far away.
You can
Okay.
move, you can move if you'd like.
That's okay, I'll kind of dance around a little bit, but if I get in the way, you guys let me know. Or if my hair gets in the way, let me know. Data visualization trend number 2. And again, it's like a huge dose of cynical Sean tonight. Most dashboards and reports still sync. I'm going to take you through a few examples. These are Power BI dashboards that Microsoft distributed as world-class examples in a PDF file as an example to give creative inspiration to all of the users around the world using Power BI. Okay. And I look at these and there's some good stuff and there's some bad stuff. So I thought we'd kind of do this as a bit of a class exercise. Okay, so we'll kind of go educational. Can anyone name anything good about this dashboard? I know there's at least one.
I like the color scheme.
And I think the color scheme is great too. I like that. Thank you. There's another one.
Limited number of visuals.
Yeah, I mean, I like the use of the space. Okay, I think that that's good too. Anything else that you guys like?
KPIs.
I hate the KPIs.
Really?
I do. And if you were at one of my sessions earlier, you'll know how I like to do KPIs, and we'll actually talk about them in a minute. So thank you, Nicole. We'll get there. But they give me no context.
Mhm.
There's no time frame on this. I don't know. Is this forever? Is this in the last week? Was this yesterday? I don't know what I'm looking at here. How could I possibly make any kind of an informed decision on this if I don't even know a time frame? So that's in the bad category. Okay. I think these are uber way too simplistic. Like I don't get much from this. I don't know if the top 10 city for the USA, has it always been the top 10 city? Should it be greater than the value out here? Should it be less than it? What's its target? Like, it's missing a ton of context. What I do like, and this is where some of the products are getting better, is they will generate a projected forecast as you move forward. So you see that little funky blue section? As I move forward, it's saying, well, you're probably going to be in this range, right? I like that. Okay, that's one of the things I like about it. Okay, so that's one example. Let's see if we can look at another one. Okay. Again, bad, good. Anyone? Thoughts?
Any visuals on
Yeah.
this one?
We got a lot going on here.
Layout's weird too with that big heavy one in the middle on the top.
The color is drawing your eye, but not helping you figure out meaning.
Yeah, I don't really know if there's a method to the madness for how it's laid out. I don't get too upset if I've got a lot on the page, if it makes sense. But if it's just like, oh, well, I'll put it here because I've got room, I don't know that doesn't always work for me, okay? Go back to the previous chart. I've got no time frame on this, right? I have a little bit of time frame here with equal to 90 days or less than 90 days. I have machines by age range, but I don't know how long this data is projected over. And again, I have no targets on these. I don't know if 18, this number here, I don't know if that's good or bad. It's shaded lighter green than darker blue, but I don't know what that means, okay? I do like the filters and I like a left-hand nav that kind of works, okay, can help me. So I really don't think this is world class, okay? Like, we can do better. If this is the bar, like, I have a saying in my household. My wife hates this. One of my kids almost put this in their high school yearbook. But I say the key to happiness in life is to set your expectations low. Okay? Just think about it. What is disappointment? Disappointment's an equation. I'm an engineer. Disappointment is a function of missed expectations. Like what actually happened compared to expectations. If what happened like is below or is below expectations, I'm disappointed, right? And that gap is like directly proportional to the amount of disappointment that you have. So if this is the bar they're setting, I think it might be because Microsoft maybe wants to temper our disappointment. I don't know. But it's just not great, okay? And is anyone in marketing here? Like, this is the kind of stuff marketing likes to see because they could argue it looks pretty with the colors and stuff, but there's like no substance to it. All right, next one. Please, thank you. Okay. This one from Hitachi. All right. Good or bad? Or what's some good things about this or bad? Feedback from the audience.
Well, I can say it shows that by the color that you're either missing or hitting target. Yeah, right there. So,
Yep. Okay,
so some context.
some context. Like it. Anyone else?
This one doesn't feel like so random. I guess it feels like there's a definite format.
Mhm. I've got my top 5 gains, I've my bottom 5 losses, so I kind of get both ends. I like to focus on exceptions. I think I get to make a bigger impact by capitalizing on the good stuff and fixing the really bad stuff. So I like this. I like the container. I can utilize real estate and I can pop between these different items and use the same real estate. That's good. I will tell you, by far, out of the world-class showcase document that Microsoft put out, this is, in my opinion, by far the best one. It's so good. I've actually used this with clients. Okay, and I have had clients rebuild, and you can do this in Power BI. It's a little bit of a pain in the ass, but it's doable. You can rebuild these KPI blocks in Power BI. And I've taken it a step. I'll show you an example in a minute here, but you can take these to a greater extent, even than what Hitachi did here. But overall, there's a lot of good stuff going on here. So when I have distributed this to Power BI clients, I tell them focus on this one to get some creative inspiration on how you can set up your dashboards. All right. So real world best practice number 1 for data visualization. And Nicole, you kind of teed this up for me a little bit. I have this acronym. Nick, you may have remembered this from years past because I have presented this one before. I call it TACT. Okay, especially when you're looking at a KPI, you want to use tact, which means I want to give you a target. I want to see the actual. I want to compare the actual to something. It's usually like same period prior year. And then I want to see a trend because I want to know, is my KPI getting good or is it getting bad? Okay. Those four things put context around that KPI that can help even, like imagine you have like a brand new CIO and like maybe they've been there for like, I don't know, 4 weeks and they have to come in and actually see what's going on. Okay. I heard a birdie. And you want them to know, is something good or not, right? Well, you can look at this right away and Jason? Jack? Okay, sorry. To your point, the way I had a client deploy this is they actually did that. They've color coded these entire blocks so that if it's good, it's green. If it's bad, it's red. And if it's, I call it tangerine. Okay. Now, any of you seen Consumer Reports? Okay. I would say plagiarism is the highest form of flattery, right? They've gone through great lengths to build a visual rating system that caters to people who are also colorblind. Okay, because red, green, and tangerine don't always work. So if you embed these icons, I can always use the icon to determine if it's good, bad, or in the middle as well. So just little stuff that makes things just that much better and easier to understand. And again, we have the actual. I know how I'm doing in my comparison. They don't see the actual comparison because they're still new with this, but they did go and put a trend line in to know if there were spikes in the last 30, 60, or 90 days, depending on which KPI they're looking at. These happen to be marketing related, where we're looking at, marketing generated leads versus marketing qualified leads versus sales accepted leads, blah, blah, blah. Now, this chart also does something similar, right? I've got my actual, I've got versus prior year, I've got versus plan, and I can see a trend. Okay. Now, this is like old, man. This is like 2015. Okay. You can do this and make it look even prettier and better with Power BI and with the newest versions of Click and stuff. It's not hard. It's not like you couldn't do this before. I just want to give examples so that you understand. Always ask yourself when you put a KPI out there, do I know what it's supposed to be? Have I achieved a goal or have I not? Some companies use a target, some use their budget number. What is the actual value? That's the easy one. That's what most of the KPI blocks do. They just slap a number out in front of you. And then you'll see, how did I do the same period and what's the trend? So just remember TAC and it'll up your game on doing KPI blocks to begin with in any of the technologies that you use. Okay. I have another acronym. I guess I'm full of acronyms. Might not be the only thing I'm full of, depending on who you talk to. MAD stands for monitor, analyze, and details. Okay, this has evolved over a little bit of time. When you're constructing a dashboard, okay, think about how to monitor what's going on, logically direct the user to what they need to analyze, and then logically allow them to drill into the details so they can either trust the high-level analysis or get to the details to ferret out some very actionable decisions. Okay, so think of that hierarchy: monitor, analyze, and then get down to the details. So with this, KPIs are a great way to do the monitoring. A little bit on KPIs, just some basic stuff. What does the user really care about? Put KPIs out there that are meaningful. If you have more than, I don't know, pick a number, 5, 6 KPIs, what do we need to do? Drop the K. Now we just got a bunch of performance indicators, and none of them are probably going to be key. Okay, right? I've had clients, we get in debates about KPIs versus metrics. Like, start with your KPIs, your key performance indicators. Many of your KPIs can be supported by a whole host of metrics. I'm a big fan of metrics. I just don't want to put 80 of them on a page and call them key performance indicators. Okay. All right. Next point on this is to give the context, so you guys know, remember, use tact. You're gonna analyze it, but my point here, I want you to know, is there are proper visuals to help with the analysis. That is where you can use AI and say, I've got this set of data. What's a good way to, what kind of chart would be best to analyze this and understand it? Okay. And then the last part is that the details, if you show them to the user, like let them drill down and get each invoice transaction or each sales order or each shipment transaction. As painful as that can be, it's really helpful for users to take a KPI that they might think is crap. Like, I don't believe that number. And they drill down and they get to all the details like, oh, yeah, we really did have someone do that. Like, they really did drive the truck to Alaska. They weren't supposed to drive to Alaska. Like, that stuff pops out of the woodwork when you get into the details. All right. All right, so we're gonna do a case study, okay, on how this works. So, I set myself up because this is busy, but it's busy for a purpose, okay? So I'm going to take you through a real world example on how I worked with a client to figure out how to build this out to solve a real world business problem for them, okay? And again, I want you to understand that this kind of a dashboard doesn't happen from AI. Because this happened when we sat down and talked to the CEO of the company, and he had a problem, which is I need to know what to do about my backlog of sales because it's getting bigger. My backlog is growing. It needs to go down. Okay. So that's the business problem we're addressing. In fact, they have an executive dashboard at this client that shows what is their demand, what is their revenue, what is their gross margin, and what is their backlog. Those are their 4 KPIs that they look at every single day. Okay. Backlog was getting too big. And when he went to his staff and said, I need you to help me figure out how we get the backlog down, the staff's like, well, I don't know. It's just a number. And they could go from the big number to an Excel spreadsheet of like all the products or orders that they had that were in the backlog. They needed something in the middle. So here's what we do. We've got a backlog, and every day we tell you, is the backlog getting worse or better? Getting worse or better, yes. Okay. And what we do is we take their backlog, so $2.9 million, and they've decided that there are 3 ways of analyzing, 3 key kind of measures around backlog. One is, what is the product that's actually back ordered? Like, I don't have this, versus I have it, but it's not shipped out yet. Why would that be? Well, some customers asked for a delivery date in the future. So I have it, they've placed the order. Some of it, I have part of it, but I don't ship until I have all of it, which is what most of this is. Like, so I could have 9 out of the 10 things sitting on a pallet, ready to go, but I can't ship that bad boy out until I get number 10, okay? So these can hold up these. And then I look at the number of orders that they have on back order. Now, what they determined when we did the business analysis, that there are 4 different departments within the company that actually have influence over the backlog. Okay. There is the customer care department, the accounting department, the purchasing department, and then fulfillment, like the warehouse. So what they did, or what we did, is they said, how do I know who's responsible? Like, which throat do I go choke if I'm the CEO to say, you need to fix the backlog, right? So now they can look at it and they know who owns what percentage of the backlog. Customer care's got a quarter of it, accounting's got a tiny sliver, purchasing's got about half of it, and fulfillment's got about a quarter of it, okay? So now they know. Okay? And then they've got the same metrics, but broken down across each of those particular areas, okay? So in this case, backlog's at 1.3 million, okay, or 1.4. So what we did is we said, okay, let's make this navigable. So if my clicker works right, you went too fast. Okay. In the particular BI platform that is being used here, they can go and hover over this and you can immediately see, oh, I can go drill into the purchasing backlog. So when you do that, you drop down in and look, purchasing's got their own little dashboard that takes it another layer deeper because purchasing says, I really have 5 different ways to segment the backlog. A versus non-A, A are like the high moving products, your non-high moving products. Some product never comes into the DC, they just drop ship it. Some are products that aren't even active and some are all ready to go, but the customer has demanded that they ship them complete. And guess what we did here? They can analyze these and see where exactly which one they want to drill into. They hover on it. So hover on my A products because that's the biggest problem area. And when you click on that, it drills down into, if it shows up, a bunch of details. Okay, I can see all of the products that are in the backlog. I sort it by which ones are on the highest back order. I can isolate this particular product. I can see who my supplier is. I know which section of the business it is. I even see that there are open purchase orders around it because purchasing's doing something about this, just not enough. Okay. And you can take it one step further and drop into the order details and find out through this which customer orders are most impacted by my back orders for that particular product. Okay. Now customer care knows who to call. There are all kinds of actions the business can take to specifically address the backlog because we've laid it all out in that logical order based on what the business needs are. Okay. AI won't build this for you. I'm sorry. You have to work with the business to come up with this design to make sure people can actually use it. And it follows that monitor, analyze, and then get down to your details perspective. Okay. Some of you have seen this. This is another, I call it best practice number 3. This is a simple one. I really like to do projections and then compare it against a target and make it really obvious to the user. Like, are we going to exceed our goal or are we going to come up short? Use this one all the time. Okay. Really basic and simple. One of my favorite things about Power BI is the decomposition tree chart. Okay. Like my favorite chart, like pretty much period in Power BI. I love being able to have the user choose, it's like write your own story on the adventure. Click on gross revenue, break it open. Okay, I want to analyze this particular financial company. Okay, what are my different product types? What's selling, what's not? I can ask the question and drill into this and get immediate insights this way based on seeing what's there and asking myself a question and getting the answer. So I think most Power BI dashboards should have this in play in some way, shape, or form. Love these. They're really good. Some of you have seen this from years past. I have a client who used this org chart structure to analyze inventory turns. It was a great way to see how I'm doing overall. Notice I've got my current value. I know if I'm better or worse. I know what my last year was, and I've got a trend. Kind of that KPI, we've got a lot of tact going on here, and I lay it out so I can eyeball where the problems are and quickly drill into an area that needs to be investigated. So I love these. All right. Last thing about all this is that with data strategies right now, I'll say with data visualization, you've got to get it built into your data strategy. So think about the case study I just took you guys through, right? Where we went through and took the backlog. That's going to be executed as a project in most companies. You've got to put a scope around it. You got to talk to the business. You got to figure out requirements. You're going to have to go through, data provisioning in some cases and construct. It's a project. Okay. To do better visualizations, and I'll say like that one, you have to find a way to get those projects baked into your data strategy so they get a higher priority and the business can actually execute on it. Like you get the approval to go ahead and do it, right? So the visualization best practices actually build or refine your data strategy to take advantage of or to include those kind of projects. Get them in that strategy. If you don't have a data strategy, you don't know how to build one, or if you need a new one, shameless plug, Analytics to Win, that's exactly what we do with that particular method. We build a data strategy. in almost all of the data strategies that we're building, which will include, I call it a strategy matrix. It's a list or portfolio of projects. Data visualization projects almost always show up on that list. They get prioritized, and then you actually get a chance to get them approved and executed. Okay. All right. You can go to analyticstowin.com, learn more about the method. I'm finding companies that go through it, gives them focus. It's fast to deliver. There's a very predictable cost and there's reliable results. And then to just even make it a more shameless plug, if you want to learn more, you can actually take a free assessment for data governance. It's one of the assessments in the method. This one is free. So if you want to get a feel for it, this one's the most arduous. It's 36 questions, but you can do this one yourself. Okay, and it'll give you results straight away. Finish the 36 questions, hit the button, boom, you get your results back, and it'll help you understand where your data governance challenges might lie. You can get at that here. And if you really want to hear a bit more about data strategy, we just finished 2 podcast episodes. So the second one dropped literally today on my drive up. We talk about data strategy fundamentals on episode 3 and on episode 2. There's an episode 0 if you want to learn more about it. So feel free to learn more about that. And I think with that, we have like 30 seconds for questions.
That's true. Have some room for questions. Anybody's been collecting them. Quick recap on your 3 acronyms for today. Target, actual, comparison, trend, TACT, and monitor, analyze, and what?
Details. I've changed that one over the years. It used to be drill to decide, used to be decide. I liked monitor, analyze, decide, but people didn't really always get it. So we've now changed the details. So we have to stick with math.
How often are your clients refining their data strategy? Is that a continuous project, continuous improvement?
I have a meeting on Monday with a client that it's been 2 years and we're going to start refining it. Short answer is 6 to 2 years. That went 6 months to 2 years. Okay. And again, I hate to be a commercial, but by using the method, the analytics to win method, when it comes time to refine it, like the infrastructure is all there. Okay. So we basically redo the assessments and then they can see, have they gotten better? Is data governance better? I'll know because you take the assessment. Is your data harmonization and data quality better? I'll know because you're going to take the assessment again, right? Has the leadership's commitment to a data-driven culture improved or not? We'll know because they'll take the assessment. So if you follow the method and use the assessments that are part of it, you get baselines. Then when you come back 6 months or 2 years, then I can compare it and I can actually measure if our data strategy is being achieved. So just about every company that has gone through it in the last 3 years has either redone it or is in discussions about redoing it. So yeah, it's a great thing. I mean, I talked to a CIO the other day and that was one of his requirements. He's like, our business is evolving like really rapidly right now. I don't want to pay a firm to come in and drop, tens of thousands of dollars to give me a 60-page research report and then have my business change and then 6 months later have to pay it again and have a new 60-page research report done. It's like, no. Like follow a method, you get your data strategy in 3 pieces of paper. I can sit down with the executives and we can refine it really fast as your business evolves. It's a great question, Travis. Anyone else? Still on screen.
You had your hand up before?
No, we're a brand new team at our company, so we've never had a data team.
Mhm.
We've had some reporting people. And we have lots of measures everywhere. We went through an exercise to define KPIs for a corporate scorecard and for each of the departments. But they're not used to doing the data-driven decisions and like engaging in that. They say they want to, the leaders say they want to, but then when we try and implement it, how do you get them to change that behavior.
Yeah.
Repeat the question you heard from.
Yeah. So if you implemented, I'll say departmental KPIs, how do you get higher management to kind of use them, right? Right, or even how do you get the department managers to make decisions based on, you know, the insights they're starting to get?
And I
from
think
the-
that happens, but I think at our executive, like we have goals with no measures. We have things we're doing, but there's no measurement of how do you know you're successful?
So, when like the first step that I take companies through in building a data strategy is we start with your corporate objectives. Okay, and I try to get this distilled down to less than 6. And you'd think that when I walk in the door, they just have them. Like, oh yeah, Sean, here they are. It's like, a lot of times it's like pulling teeth to get the leadership team to actually like show them. And some of them are very poor, like they're not measurable. So I have to guide them so that we make them measurable, like reduce like warranty claims by 7% in the next 18 months. Like, perfect. Like I can measure that. I've got a goal. So we have to kind of get them rethinking that. That's not easy. And when you're the data team, you don't always have the right influence to get that to happen. But if you showed them a strategy matrix like what I put together, what we do is we show how your projects link up to that. And now you're like, I get a little cheeky, as you guys can probably tell, just in the hour we've spent together. I like to find corporate objectives that are linked to the executive's bonus plans.
Mhm.
Okay, because at that point, it's like, if you want us to do this, like, or if you want to get that, let's do this. And what I do is I build a matrix that allows them to connect the dots.
That was the first thing I did is listen to a whole bunch of videos of all the things they want to accomplish and drew a 1-page picture.
Yeah.
They're not really engaging, embracing that.
So the other thing that I'll do with the leadership team is I do a data-driven culture and decision-making assessment as part of Analytics to Win. And I make the client let me have 90 minutes with the leadership team, and I administer a 20-question assessment to them. And the results are good, but it's the process to get the leadership team to arrive at an answer to a question between 1 and 5 for each of the 20 questions. There's no way they can do it without talking. Okay? So it gets a lot of good conversation about the use of data in the business. And then inevitably, if they get the results and the results aren't what they want, it gives them motivation to say, we need to put time and effort into making this happen. Because none of them want to come to the realization that they're not working in a data-driven culture.
Yeah.
Or they're not supporting.
So I tried that a work session with the leaders and many of them skipped out. We had other things that are higher priority. So it's like,
That's not great.
Okay, so now that the last
There seems a little.
try paying a consultant a whole bunch of money to come and do
Exactly.
it, and then tell them if they don't show up, you're basically setting them on, putting the
Right.
money on fire in the freaking.
yeah, true. Money talks, right?
There is a place for consultants
True,
sometimes,
yes.
and it feels like they ask, it feels like you ask them what time it is, and I'm like, Nick, let me see your wrist. Okay, it's 5:04, right? Like, I know consultants are like that sometimes or feel like that, but sometimes you won't get someone to tell you what time it is if they don't spend enough money and make it like worthwhile.
Right, yeah,
So what was the motivation for them to build the new team? Because they obviously invested in you guys.
right.
So
Yeah.
somebody must think it's important to invest in a whole team to do what you do.
It is a corporate project. I don't know, thoughts? Alex has been there longer than me.
Yeah.
I've been there years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone's so busy right now that they are struggling to change behavior. I think that's the problem. Everyone's overwhelmed.
There's a great book called The 4 Disciplines of Execution.
Yeah,
And one of their main tenets is just focus. When you get focused on more than 1 or 2 things, in most situations, nothing gets done. So,
I'm a CI person. I know about that book, yeah.
yeah, it's one of Covey's son.
Yeah.
was one of the authors. So that's a good book. I would recommend that too, as just a way to give you some ideas on how to give them focus.
What was it again?
It's called the 4 Disciplines of Execution.
There might be a free webinar on Covey's site for that.
Yep.
They have 1 hour free webinars that give you a little overview of it.